Member for Riverina.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And at the outset, I will acknowledge the member for Solomon's service to our nation. I'll thank him for most of the content of his speech. And he, like me, wants our nation to be the most secure it can be. He, like me, wants the very best in capability, the very best in defence personnel. And whilst he was in uniform, he was one of those who was the very best our nation could offer to be prepared to go and fight, if necessary, for our nation. Again, I thank you, Member for Solomon, for your words. The price of peace, as has often been said, is eternal vigilance. And this legislation, the entire AUKUS framework, is based on being well prepared, is based on being ever vigilant. As I speak, we have Greens Party members throwing manure at police horses in Melbourne. Now, the Greens want horse racing stopped, and just bear with me, this is relevant. The Greens want horse racing stopped in Melbourne, which is the home of the world's greatest horse race, handicap race, the Melbourne Cup. And yet they are at an anti-war, anti-Israel protest at the moment, pro-Hamas, throwing manure at police horses, and that is a disgrace. And in a moment we're going to hear from a couple of Greens on this particular bill. Now, if the defence of this nation, the security of Australia, is left to the Greens, then God help us. God help us. Because what we see from the Greens' antics in the House of Representatives and the Senate, what we see at protests not just in Melbourne, not just in our capital cities, but indeed in regional centres right throughout Australia, including my hometown of Wagga Wagga at the moment, is nothing short of abhorrent. And I truly worry if we are left after the next election with a government which has to rely on Green votes to get legislation passed. And so it's good that we're passing this legislation today or in the not-too-distant future, because when it comes to ensuring that national security is, as it always should be, the number one priority of a government, then there are a lot of commonalities between Labor and the Coalition. Australia is an island nation. We are surrounded by water, and ensuring the safety and security of our coastline, of our nation, is going to be underpinned by our nuclear naval capability. And the Nuclear Power Safety Bill is integral in ensuring that we have the right fleet, the right personnel, the right build going forward to ensure that we meet our commitments to keep Australian people's safety as our number one priority. Now, this is a legacy of Scott Morrison, it is, and when he met in the margins of the G7 summit in Carbis Bay, it was June 12, 2021. I was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time, and I'm very proud to say that this had been months in the making. The AUKUS arrangements, the agreements that we have entered into with the United States of America, with the United Kingdom, were vital to our nation, not just in the here and now, but for decades going forward. And I want to commend former Prime Minister Morrison for the work he did, the negotiations he managed, and the ability to achieve this historic deal. Prime Minister Morrison and President Joe Biden discussed a number of issues of mutual concern, including the Indo-Pacific region. And having been fortunate enough to go to the Australia-America dialogue at the after being requested to do so, or asked to do so, invited to do so indeed, by former Speaker Tony Smith, And when we had the briefings with the US at those particular meetings, the need to have a good Navy presence in the Indo-Pacific became even more apparent. Now, President Biden and Prime Minister Morrison agreed that the strategic context in the Indo-Pacific was changing, and it is. It's very much altering, and that there was a strong rationale for deepening strategic cooperation between the three governments, UK, US and Australia. Of course, they welcomed at the time the forthcoming visits and exercises in the Indo-Pacific by the Carrier Strike Group led by HMS Queen Elizabeth. And what our Navy does, indeed what our Australian Army and Royal Australian Air Force do as well, they have the very best training exercises, and they do a lot of those over the top end, in northern Queensland, Northern Territory, and the presence of in Darwin of our people, our ADF personnel, mixed with the finest American Marines, is quite integral and important to our future defence operations. Speed is of the essence with the Australian Nuclear Safety Power Bill and the transition, and making sure that we get on and build the subs. We support this bill. Coalition agrees with this bill, and obviously it will follow with Senate scrutiny because it's vital to our long-term defence capability and security of Australians. It's in the best interests of our nation that AUKUS succeeds. It's in the best interests of our nation that the Greens do not succeed, because they are bringing to this parliament and to our nation a change in the social fabric of society. They want to tear down all those traditions that we are quite frankly proud of. I worry, even in Wagga Wagga, we've got a local government election this Saturday. The Greens are already on the council. They've had a deputy mayor in recent times, and Wagga Wagga is a garrison city. We have the home of the soldier, Kapooka, Blamey Barracks, 1st Recruit Training Battalion. If you are joining the army as a recruit, you do your training at Kapooka, at Wagga Wagga. If you spend any given time in the Royal Australian Air Force, you will end up, more than likely, at RAF Base Wagga Wagga. And indeed, connected to and a vital part of RAF Wagga is a Navy presence. Dozens upon dozens of naval personnel in Wagga Wagga. Very much landlocked, long way from the nearest drop of seawater, but we're very proud of having those Navy people. They are the best and the bravest and the finest that the Navy produces, often end up at Wagga Wagga as well. And I'm also very proud that when we were in government, and I was the Deputy Prime Minister. Indeed, in previous portfolio areas, I was a Veterans Affairs Minister, and I was also Assistant Minister of Defence before that. That Wagga Wagga secured $561.9 million for upgrades, vital upgrades to RAF Wagga, to ensure that it had accommodation that was fit for purpose for 2024, let alone beyond. They were living in quarters that were built in the 1950s, and $846.8 million for Kapooka for vital upgrades for the Army base. I say that in the context that we need to be prepared not just on the coastline, but indeed right throughout our strategic training bases, right throughout our military presence in Australia. Now, I won't read all of this, but if people want to look at it, they can go on the Lowy Institute website and read in full. I will selectively quote some of the lines from Sam Rugevin's article where he was referring in 2022, 12 September, to AUKUS 1 year on, talking about how details were needed, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Some lines in the article where he was talking about how this was brought about very hastily. Well, it needed to be. You can't have a multi-pronged tripartite defence agreement and let the, and just have a national discussion about the pros and cons of that, because once the Greens started talking about it, nothing would ever get done. Sometimes these do need to happen behind closed doors and then work towards a sensible outcome for the nation. But in the article, he talks about, and I'll quote it, on 15 September 2021, Prime Minister Scott Morrison joined his British counterpart Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden to announce AUKUS. In so doing, Morrison set Australia's foreign and defence policies on a profoundly new course, a course now firmly embraced by the new Labor government led by Anthony Albanese. Now, he continues, if the submarines are all delivered, Australia will join the high table of the world's military powers. I think that's a good thing. He didn't write that, I'm saying that. Nuclear-powered submarines are the apex predators of naval warfare, and Australia is proposing to acquire at least 8, more than the UK and France now have or plan to have. Nuclear power gives these submarines almost infinite range and endurance, and they will carry missiles that can strike targets thousands of kilometres inland. For the first time in its history, Australia will have global strike capability. Nothing wrong with that. Above all, he writes, AUKUS is a profound step because of what it says about the Australian government's attitude to the US alliance. I'd almost say nothing wrong with that either. I would say that, in fact. And he refers to AUKUS being a big bet on America. Well, at the end of the day, I was once told that a definition of a friend is someone who has the same enemies you have. And whilst I'm not going to detail any enemies that we do have, but we do need to be prepared. We do need to be strike ready. We do need to have not just personnel committed to going into battle if need be, and I hope that's not the case, but we need to also have the weaponry and the equipment and the capability if the need arises. And to be able to do that, we need to have a very, very good submarine fleet, given the fact that we are an island nation, given the fact that we are in a volatile geopolitical Indo-Pacific region, and things are changing, and they are changing fast. Australia's target date for achieving the sovereign ready milestone is the early 2030s. US and UK nuclear submarines will be forward rotating through HMAS Stirling in Western Australia from 2027, and we will want to have our people upskilled and our facilities upgraded by that time. We don't have a day to waste. We do not. Australia has to prove to the US and the UK we are a reliable partner. I think we've done that in world wars past. We've done that through our rotations with the US and the UK in recent conflicts. And I can recall, and I was there with the member for McEwen actually at Camp Baird, where we both heard, particularly from the US, how proud they were to serve alongside Australians, how infinitely more secure they felt when they were fighting alongside Australians than anyone else in the world. And the member for McEwen, I see him nodding. We were both, I know we were very proud of the level of commitment our troops gave, but certainly the level of safety and security that others felt in our troops. Now, we won't let the US or the UK down. We are making a huge investment, and when the government talks about a Made in Australia manufacturing initiative going forward, this lies at the very heart of making sure that we do very much use Australian capability and know-how, obviously in line with the AUKUS arrangements, to upskill our people. And I heard the member for Solomon talking about the wonderful job opportunities that were going to be made available because of this. So this is a proud Australia moment, it's a Team Australia moment, and it's also a great legacy of former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, I recommend the bill to the House.